Welcome to the WRC podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and you're in the right place. Here at the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast, what you can expect is to learn, shift your thinking, and gain personal and professional growth. And if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast episode. The conversation starts now. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the WRC podcast. I am so excited to join you this week with a new and fresh episode. This week, we are going to talk about how to give your LinkedIn a glow up. I know that sounds very feminine for those of you that might be listening. It was just a fun, catchy way to catch your attention, I suppose. But before we get started, make sure that you subscribe to my podcast on Spotify. I've also added my podcast on Stitcher Radio in case you are listening as a Stitcher listener. So again, this is another way for you to connect with me on a different platform. I also have my book, The Well-Rounded Counselor, that is coming out very soon. I'm going to leave a link in my show notes for you to sign up so you can get a very exclusive discount and know first when it's coming out. So stay tuned and make sure you sign up. I'll leave all of that down in the show notes below. Without further ado, let's talk about LinkedIn for a minute. I have come to love this platform, and I know it's been around for a very long time. And there are literally like 930 million subscribers on LinkedIn, and they are in over 200 countries and territories worldwide. I've come to hate it at first, and now I just absolutely love it. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I can tell you why. I never used to be a networker. And if you haven't heard my podcast about networking tips, I do talk about LinkedIn a little bit, but I never used to be a networker, and I actually used to hate it. This past week, funny enough, I went to a few networking events, and I was talking with a colleague in the community, the counseling community, and he didn't know this about me. He was quite shocked to learn that I hated networking. And with time, I realized the power of networking and the opportunities and the possibilities that come through it. In this episode, I want to get very specific about a particular way you can network and grow your network and see what other professionals are doing, not just in your industry, but other industries that you are interested in or might be closely aligned, or maybe you're looking for a career change and you want to reach out to people in that particular industry. So I want to encourage you to, if you haven't created a LinkedIn account, to start creating one. Here are about 10 tips I'm going to give you that I use specifically to grow my LinkedIn and to connect with people. And you can adopt these, you can Google these, you can find more than just these 10, but these are just the general things that I typically do that have helped me grow the community, my online community and following. So one of the key things I want you to know is that if you have about 500 connections, LinkedIn does consider that pretty good. But if you reach over 1,000 followers, you gain micro influencer status. Woohoo! So building an audience takes time. And that's something that I'm doing for my brand, The Well-Rounded Counselor, is building an audience. And I know that this is not going to come overnight. So one of my first goals was to gain 1,000 followers. And you can easily set up your settings where people follow you versus requesting a connection. So it's a step on LinkedIn that you would set up, and it basically allows people to follow you versus connect with you. Connecting requires an extra step. So if you are limiting people to connect with you where you have to like input an email address or something that prevents people connecting with you, you're not making yourself accessible to build your network. So really consider your privacy settings and how you want people to find you. If you are a very private person, I totally understand, but just remember that LinkedIn is a different type of social media platform. It's not like Instagram or Facebook where it's just for pleasure and fun and anybody can randomly find you. It is for working professionals. So it does have a different approach and a different audience. That's not one of my tips. It's just kind of a general thing that I wanted to achieve when I set out to get more active on LinkedIn. I wanted to reach micro influencer status. And so if you were to follow me on LinkedIn, you would see that I have a lot of followers. And here are some of the steps that I've taken to achieve that. Number one, I chose to find the right LinkedIn photo. Now, I did take some professional headshots. I did take some better looking photos that would position me to look a certain way. So when people find me and they add me, they can see what I look like. They can kind of get a feel because, first impressions are everything. That's what they say. And I do believe that this is true. And people are visual. People are going to look and figure out, who is this person? What do they look like? Have I seen them before? And then when you do actually meet up with people, they can kind of reference you and say, "Oh, I've seen you on LinkedIn." And that's happened to me many times. It actually happened to me about 2 weeks ago. So people tend to kind of recognize you based off of your LinkedIn photo. So you want to make sure that it's a good quality photo and it highlights kind of the message or the professionalism you would like to give across. Another thing that I've recently done is I've added a background photo. A lot of LinkedIn profiles do not have a background photo. And for a long time, I did not have one. And I took time, I went on Canva and I created one. And you can see it. I'll leave my link of my LinkedIn in my show notes so you can find me and follow me or connect with me. I would love that. So you'll be able to see that I have a banner, and the banner just basically promotes my podcast because, again, that's something that's important to me, and I want people to find the podcast and I want people to subscribe or follow it. And so I decided to take that approach and share that angle in alongside of all my other professional things that I'm doing. So your background photo could be literally anything, something that's important to you. It could be the city you're currently living in. It can be just your contact details in a very formal, elegant way. But I chose to kind of promote my podcast in a very professional way. The next thing that I've done is I've turned my summary, so you can have a summary of yourself, into a story. So this summary is your chance to tell your own story and not just your list of skills or job titles, but bring to life those skills. And so I've done that in a very clever, short, concise way. And this is how people get to know what you do and what you do for work. And so I encourage you to kind of be playful, use buzzwords, SEO words, keywords in your summary, because that's kind of what people go to and that's what they look at first. So the first three things that I always look at is if somebody has a profile photo, a background photo, and I kind of look at their summary. These are the first things you'll see on your LinkedIn and most people's LinkedIn if you're checking other people out. So these are the top three ones. Number 4 is make your headline catchy and not just a job title. At first, I literally just had high school counselor. And then with time, I started seeing other people with really unique titles. And I was like, oh, I want that. That sounds interesting. And so I had to think about, what did I want to put that kind of makes me stand out. So I decided to put well-being and university counselor, podcast host, and author. I didn't put my book yet because it's not published, but once I do, I will add that under my headline. So it has my name and then it has my headline. That's a bit catchy. It even has an emoji in it. So it's kind of fun and playful, and people, kind of see you as friendly and approachable. So that was kind of the approach I wanted in my headline. My next tip, number 5, is spotlighting services that you offer. This can also help you make some extra income. So, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is making extra passive or active income in addition to what I do. So, I decided to add services to my LinkedIn profile. So, you'll be able to find that I can help other educators review their resume, provide resume services, help them with interviews, mock interviews, help them prepare, all of the above. And so I'm focusing on a particular niche of other educators or teachers that want to go into the counseling world, or people that want to transition from their profession into a counseling role. Again, all of this information will be on my LinkedIn. You'll be able to see it. This is just another way for people to see other things that you can provide or service you can provide. And there are tags and hashtags on this service so people can find you as well in the LinkedIn community. Number 6, and this is something that I do a couple times a week, if not more. I post regularly. I think it's very important for you to share interesting posts and thoughts on your feed. This helps you share your voice and your professional edge. And for me, one of the things that I do is I try to market myself as the well-rounded counselor. I'm sharing my podcast, I'm sharing posts that kind of introduce you to my story and, just bring me to life. And I'm not trying to be a thought leader, but if that naturally happens and people like my content from that lens, they can label me that. But that is not my intention. I am just trying to share interesting posts to catch people's attention and be regular. And so I think it's important for you to share interesting posts about professional development things. And this leads me into my next one. Share interesting posts about maybe professional development activities you're participating in, tagging people that you've collaborated with, or places that you've gone and visited. You can always find the company's name usually on LinkedIn. You can tag that company, or you can tag another person that you're connected with. So again, sharing interesting posts and tag people in those posts. I think I recently went to a networking event for universities in New Zealand. And so I was able to tag all of the representatives from New Zealand. I was also able to tag those universities, and it created a lot of momentum. A lot of people were finding it. The impressions went up quite a bit. The algorithm spiked. If you're trying to create a following or increase your following, tagging people in your posts can be very beneficial. I think it's also important to leave comments on other people's posts. So again, if you're looking for people to like your stuff, leave comments, leave feedback, it's also good karma and good energy to put out there other comments on people's posts and be active as well and reciprocate that. Because again, when you are leaving posts, it tells other people in your LinkedIn network that Katrina posted on this. Maybe you might be interested in this post. So again, it kind of triggers. The next thing I'd like you to consider is adding skills to your profile. I recently took another leaf out of somebody's book that I follow on LinkedIn, and I added skill sets to my LinkedIn. And again, people can endorse your skill sets, and you can ask people to endorse your skill sets. So again, that creates a little bit more momentum in your LinkedIn. But also these are keywords that recruiters will look for. So a recruiter may only spend like maybe 10 seconds on your LinkedIn. How do you increase that to 120 seconds? Well, that might be through your skill sets, through your SEO, your keywords, all of that, especially if you're using LinkedIn to find a job. So adding skill sets under each job role that you had. Now, remember, LinkedIn is not meant to be your resume. It's not. It's just meant to highlight and showcase a variety of things that you've done. Your resume should be a kind of different. It should reflect your resume, but it shouldn't be your resume. I want you to consider not overdoing it on your LinkedIn, especially when you add your skill sets. Only add 3 to 5 skill sets per job, because otherwise people don't have time to read all of that. They just don't. And people don't care that much. So if you just add a couple things, don't overdo it, it can really make a difference. Number 10, reshare relevant content that you see in your LinkedIn feed. There's been a number of times that I've seen people post interesting things and I've reshared it because it caught my attention. It was not my original content. It was not something that is always aligned with what I'm trying to market or promote or brand myself as, but it really caught my attention and I felt it was important and I wanted to reshare it. And I think that can really help also build other people's networks because you're sharing a post from somebody else. And I think that's good energy to put out there. So, again, don't use LinkedIn as a very selfish tool, but as a connection tool where you are making connections with people. I know that you can get spammed quite a bit in LinkedIn, but keep in mind that they're trying to build business at the end of the day. And I think it's important that you kind of take all that with a grain of salt and just be polite and say, I'm not interested at this time and all of this. So just because you have a really strong LinkedIn profile doesn't mean you have to actively engage with a lot of spam emails or messages. I do think having these 10 things could really, really amp up your network and really help you grow and really help you show people that you have an edge and that you are professional or that you're passionate about something. I always tell people that I'm very passionate about helping other counselors become better counselors. Now, I don't have every single answer to every single scenario, situation, ethical dilemma, but I like to think that I'm very well experienced, very well rounded, and I have a little bit of know how about different things, kind of like a Jill of all trades. So I like to, again, position my LinkedIn profile to reflect all of that. And so I've taken these 10 steps to kind of help you set yourself up for whatever it is that you're trying to promote. Again, I'm going to leave all of my details in the show notes today. So I'm going to leave you my LinkedIn profile. So if in case you want to see what I'm doing, you can have a view at it. Or if you want to follow me or connect with me, that's a great place to connect. I also will leave my book details in the show notes, and I also will leave just the 10 tips to kind of help you remember what they are, so you can kind of go back and cross out the things that you've done. So create yourself a little bit of a checklist. If you feel like maybe taking a professional headshot is too much of an investment, well, maybe use your work photo. Like, they have a professional work photo at my job. I used that for a long time until I actually got headshots done. So you can get a bit creative, but I definitely think you don't need to like have the professional status. You don't need to pay all this money unless you really need it to promote you in a certain way. Remember, LinkedIn, building a network is not going to be overnight. It's going to be kind of like a marathon. It's going to take some time. I know that I didn't start really building my LinkedIn until maybe last fall, like October or November. And with time, it's be kind of come part of my part-time job. It's just really building my brand and creating awareness about some of the projects that I'm doing or some of the initiatives that I have. And it's also another way to collaborate with other professionals who want to be on my podcast. So, again, if you are a unique counseling professional, coach, mentor, somebody that's kind of in the self-help industry and you want to kind of connect with me, again, I'll leave those details in my show notes as well. All right. So, this was kind of like a mini podcast this week. I hope that this kind of inspired you to glow up your LinkedIn profile, or at least take some bits and pieces and implement it slowly but surely. And if you feel like this episode can help somebody, make sure that you share it with somebody. And if you feel like it was connecting and resonating with you, make sure that you leave me that 5-star review. It really, really helps me a lot. So thank you all, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. Did you love the episode? I hope you're feeling inspired and no longer feeling alone out there, and you're ready to evolve and become a better person. Make sure that you share this podcast or take a screenshot and post it on your social media. That's how you help spread this podcast organically, and people can find it much easier when you share, or share it with a loved one. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and make it your mission to be a blessing in someone else's life today.